Grandmother always said that even after death, she would never leave me. For a time, I thought it was because she was immortal and she would never die. I was 11 in school when I was called to the office. Jade Tallio, please come to the office. I saw my mother and father in the front of the office doors. My mother's hair was down instead of pinned up by the whalebone hairpin that my grandmother had given her, and my father's hair was cut short. Father, why did you cut your hair so short? Mother, why is your hair down? My father looked at me. Sweetie, your grandmother passed away this morning. I whispered, Granny, you broke your promise. I stood there for a second and felt the tears well up inside. I turned and ran out before anyone knew I was crying. I ran and ran until I got to the mouth of the river. I looked out onto the water, seeing a bright light. A glimmer of hope was quickly pushed out of my mind. She broke her promise. She left me. That was the first time I saw the whale. For more than a year, I had been going to the river shore, and each time I went since the day she died, a killer whale, or orca, as it was called by some, was there, alone. One day, it seemed to call out to me. I noticed the openness and tender eyes, just like grandmother. I walked home in deep thought, happy, sad, confused. What could it be? Was the whale, the inlet, really grandmother? I came upon my father. Sweetie, is something wrong? I looked deep into his eyes, trying to send him my questions through my gaze, hoping he could read my mind. Yes. Father, do you think it's possible to be reincarnated? My father said, well, your grandmother used to say that once a chief dies, they turn into a whale and continue protecting the village. I went to sleep with the words my father said running over and over in my head. Once a chief dies, they turn into a whale. But was Granny a chief? I began dreaming, and I ran down the mouth of the river, my breath becoming quick and shallow. I could see the shore, and I collapsed when I got to the water's edge. Granny! Granny! Please come! I need you! Almost breathless, I could feel myself giving up hope. Then, from the middle of the inlet, a small glowing fin came out of the water. Granny? Is that you? The whale emerged out of the water and began to transform. It spoke to me. My sweet granddaughter, I have not broken our promise. I left my human body because it was old, but my soul is still young. So here, in this whale body, you will find me. I was so happy to see my grandmother. I could almost feel her warmth. Grandmother spoke again. Do you remember what I told you about our chiefs, my granddaughter? I stared at her. Yes, they come back as a killer whip. Trembling, I asked her, Granny, were you a chief? Yes, my girl, I was the hereditary chief for our clan. And like ripples in the water, her image began to change. The light around her grew brighter. Winds blew swiftly around her as she transformed back into a whale. And she said, My girl, always remember our kinship. Teach the future generation that we are equals, and in return, the killer whale will always protect our village. Her face faded, and the whale emerged, but still she spoke to me. I know you will do what I ask, to ensure the respect of whales. That is why I made the promise to you, Jade. I felt the tears well up, and a warm, gentle breeze caressed my face, almost as if grandmother was wiping the tears away. You are my one and only granddaughter. Never break our promise. I will always come back to you when you need me the most. Full of emotion, my throat was dry, and I managed to whisper, I promise. The whale then blew water out of its snout and spoke, only as orcas do. It turned and swam out of the river mouth, down into the ocean. She sang to me a lullaby, the lullaby of promise we both must keep.